Welcome everyone here in the Frangipani Room and on Zoom to this week's celebration of service for the Bloomington Rotary Club. It's March 15th. I'm your president, Sally Gaskell, and I would like to invite Bill Brown to come to the podium to give our reflection. And it is March 15th. Did I mention that? I think that's significant. Y'all can be seated. Thank you.
Thank you, President Sally. I was standing in Morgenstern's bookstore looking for information on when I should plant my spinach seeds, and there was a calendar listing in the old Farmer's Almanac that said, March 15th, beware the Ides of March. And that made me reflect on that phrase. And William Shakespeare's play portrays that warning given to Julius Caesar in 44 BC by a soothsayer prior to history's most famous assassination. That line has stayed with us for 421 years. And what Caesar's soothsayer, Spurinna, probably actually said was, beware the next 30 days, after he noted that a bull sacrificed at Lupercalia on February 15th had no heart, to use his description. On the morning of March 15th, Caesar supposedly said dismissively to Spurinna, the Ides of March have come. And Spurinna replied, aye, they have come, but they have not gone. Shortly thereafter, Caesar was assassinated during a meeting of the Senate at the Curia of Pompey, of the Theater of Pompey in Rome. Senators stabbed Caesar 23 times, and we think our politics today is divisive. The Ides of March have been a recurring theme in popular culture, usually portending bad news. But do we really need to beware of the Ides of March a couple of millennia after the death of Julius Caesar? And what is an Ide anyway? Roman months were divided into calends, the first of the month, nones relating to the first quarter of the moon, and Ides originally determining the full moon, reflecting the lunar origin of the Roman calendar. In the earliest Roman calendar, the Ides of March would have been the first full moon of the new year, now known as the worm moon here. So is there a reason to fear March 15th as statistically more dangerous? Actually, January 1st is the deadliest day of the year. Ironically, it was Julius Caesar who gave us 2 additional months of January and February of his Julian calendar. So we have him to blame for moving the first of the year from March to January. So when you hear the Ides of March from now on, think about it as a sign of spring. It was a celebration of new life, a new year. Maybe we should be aware of the Ides of March, tune into the rebirth that is spring, new beginnings, new life, new possibilities. We can look forward to the worm moon, which is the first new moon of the new year, on the 18th, and the vernal equinox, which is on the 20th. We can make new friends, we can start anew, plant something like spinach, which I still didn't know, I didn't find any information on when to do that. A possible exception for this day only, if you know any Wyoming basketball players, go ahead and text them a note saying, beware the Ides of March. Otherwise, let's celebrate the Ides of March as the gateway to the glory of spring. Happy Ides of March.
I love it. Isn't it great that we're still influenced by this English scribe who wrote in the 16th century? And speaking of plays, I want to give a shout out to everybody who came to the Cardinal stage production of The Mountaintop last Thursday. It was really great to see everybody. And if you haven't seen it yet, please do yourselves a favor and go. It's still on this weekend. We have some guests today here in the Frangipani Room. Will you please rise as I say your name? Sue Shindell, yes, you have to get up, is a guest of Winston. Anne Bright is a guest of Jim. And Vida DeWeese is a guest of Leslie Green. Now, how about on Zoom? Joy, do we have guests?
Hi, Sally. Yes, we do have some guests on Zoom this afternoon. Can you hear me well? Can you hear me?
Can we hear Joy out in the audience? Barely.
Okay.
Barely. Okay. Our guests today on Zoom, all guests of Jim Bright, are Teresa Clare.
Teresa Clare.
Teresa with Hurlo Wealth Management. Colleen McKenna with Habitat for Humanity. Welcome, Colleen. And then we have fellow Rotarian from Brown County, Mike Laros, joining us. Welcome, Mike.
Welcome to our guests on Zoom. Do come back anytime. We're here every week. Jim?
Our guest, Whitney Cordova. Whitney is a former Fulbright scholar from Columbia, working on her PhD in the IU School of Public Health. So Whitney Cordova.
Whitney Cordova, former Fulbright scholar, just joined us here in the Frangipani. Welcome. Okay. I want to thank our team this week. We have producer Alan Barker, Zoom host Joy Harder, and Michael Shermas was going to be our roving camera and mic operator, but that's not quite working this week. But Michael was
We'll still do it for the room.
Oh, that's right. We'll still do it for the Frangipani. The roundabout reporter for this week is Aaron Brewington. Thank you, Aaron. Thanks to Bill Brown for the reflection and Ruth Boschkoff for being our first-time greeter. Y'all need to sign up to greet. It's fun. Art can't do it every week, so. We have one birthday this week, nestled between the Ides of March and St. Patrick's Day is Scott Shackelford, March the 16th, and Monica Kroner on March 20th. 4 member anniversaries. Congratulations to all of these Rotarians. Sandy Keller, 3 years in our club. Jeff Baldwin, 8 years. Shelley Yoder, Senator Shelley Yoder, 9 years. And Steve Moberly, 15 years. Congrats to all of you. Last week, we had a really fun time. And we had so much fun that I failed to announce the results of the vote to update and revise our bylaws. So Susie Graham did include it in the roundabout, but in case you missed it, it was a unanimous approval. So thank you all for voting. This week, the Board of Directors meets, and among other things, we're going to be making plans to follow up the terrific discussion that we had during last week's meeting about membership recruitment. So please stay tuned for that. Did you happen to see the terrific op-ed by Jessica Hain in the Sunday Herald Times? Anyone? Yes, we did. So, as a reminder, on April the 9th, Rotarians from 34 clubs will gather here in the IMU for our first in-person district conference in 3 years. Now, Jessica wrote, of course, about our service project, our Empowering Girls project, and we are going to be assembling period positivity pouches for Girls Inc. of Monroe County. To fill those pouches, we need contributions of pads, tampons, toothbrushes, and note cards. And of course, we will also welcome financial contributions that will enable us to buy those materials. Now, you can drop off any of those items at Teachers Warehouse through Wednesday, April 6th, or I would say bring them here to the IMU next week or the week after for one of our meetings, and I'll take care of getting them to the right people. Next week, I will repeat this later on, but next week we will not be here in the Frangipani room for the first time in forever. We will be upstairs in the Georgian room. I have an announcement, exciting one, about the Palo Alto and Bloomington Rotary Exchange. So members of the Rotary Club of Palo Alto, California will be visiting our fair city the last weekend of May 26th to the 29th. That's Memorial Day weekend. They're going to be arriving on a Thursday and leaving on Sunday. So together with our friends from Bloomington North and Bloomington Sunrise Clubs, we're going to be putting together a program for them based on their interests in getting to know Bloomington. And of course, there will be some social events. So everyone is welcome to meet and exchange ideas with our fellow Rotarians from our sibling city. And then a month after that, our club's delegation will go to Palo Alto the last weekend of June, June 23rd to the 26th. Again, arriving Thursday and leaving Sunday, or honestly, whenever you want to leave or arrive. Please let me know if you'd like to join us. Any member of our club is welcome to go. You will need to pay your own expenses, travel and housing, and some meals. And with that, we have time for happy dollars. Yay! Is anybody happy? Oh, Leslie Green is happy. Leslie will maybe wait for Michael and the mic. Well, it's working for in the room. But for the,
I'm elected to take the opportunity to introduce my guest today, Bidda Louise. But Bidda is actually my successor at Stonebell, and will take the CEO role starting in April. So I'm very happy.
yay!
Can you repeat that?
For those of you on Zoom, Leslie wanted to introduce her colleague and successor at Stonebell, Bidda Louise. Congrats to Bidda. Anybody else in the frangipani room? Anybody happy? Happy about baseball? I'm happy about baseball. Happy about basketball? Okay, good, good. Art.
Happy bunch. I'm just happy that it's spring and I can start working on my boat.
Art is happy. He's gonna start working on his boat now that it's spring. You know what they say about boat owners, Art? The 2 happiest days of your, no, okay, no. Oh, he's had his boat for 35 years. I stand corrected. He's a very happy boat owner. Anybody on Zoom happy today? Raj Hadawi.
Well, I give $5 honoring my previous neighbor and who is attending the meeting, Mrs. Shendell, as she coming today to hear something about a project she started it many years ago. And I'm delighted to see her face in the camera today.
Raj, I miss you. Can you hear me?
I do.
Thanks, Raj.
Visit.
We all wish you would come visit, Raj, but we do get to see you on Zoom every week. Anybody else on Zoom? Anybody else happy for any other reason? Okay, then we will proceed. We will proceed by Jeff Richardson coming to the podium to introduce today's speaker.
Good afternoon. Our speaker today, Emily Pike, a native of Southern Indiana, is a veteran of the Peace Corps. She was in Togo for over 2 years, a graduate of the University of Notre Dame and of the IU SPIA program, where she got her MPA. Emily is passionate about serving children and families. She has more than 20 years of experience working with nonprofit organizations. Emily has been a part of the New Hope for Families team for nearly 10 years. In fact, her anniversary is April 29th, and she has served as its executive director since 2015. There are many impressive facts and figures I could share with you about the New Hope program, but I'm going to let Emily do that. Instead, I want to take a few minutes to let you know what others are saying about Emily, the person, the visionary, the collaborator, the leader. Emily was the 2021 Women Excel Bloomington honoree. Here are just some of the testimonials from that event. Chris Cochran, realtor and Bloomington Chamber of Commerce member and huge supporter of New Hope. Chris says every day Emily displays her overarching service and commitment to others above self. Lisa McCrae, former New Board president, says Emily is a force of nature. She is articulate, ethical, and a reflective thinker and an active problem solver. Jennifer Myers, the coordinator of Monroe County Smart Start, says Emily has a clear vision filled with passion and relentless drive. She approaches tasks courageously and with confidence and integrity, always with a strong sense of humility. On a personal note, I've been involved with not-for-profits of all kinds at the global, state, and local level for 5 decades. And I can confidently say New Hope for Families is one of the most effective and impressive organizations I have ever known. The work they're doing and how they do it is truly inspirational. Emily, it is a great honor for all of us at Rotary to welcome you as our guest speaker today. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for those kind words, and thank you guys for having me here today to talk about New Hope. I am Emily Pike, and I'm the Executive Director of New Hope for Families. But I would be remiss if I did not underscore what Raj had to say, which is that one of New Hope's founders is here in the room today, and that is Sue Shindell. So Sue, along with a group of her friends, started New Hope for Families just over 10 years ago. And it's a little bit amazing. I'm going to tell you some things about it today. But it's amazing that this thing that was an idea, was newly incorporated 11 years ago, has grown into such a valuable resource for families in our community. And that's really because of this community and because of this community's embrace of this vital mission. You know, in our community, we talk a lot about homelessness, right? We see people experiencing homelessness. We see the way that it impacts our city and our community. We see the way that it impacts ourselves emotionally. One of the things we don't often see are families impacted by homelessness. When we talk about homelessness, we might be thinking about folks that we see in the park, or folks along Kirkwood, or somebody with a sign out on 37, which I guess is 69, but I'll probably always call it 37. We don't talk about the families, but the truth is, on any given night in this community, about 40% of people impacted by homelessness are families with children. And that's a really high number. And the reason we don't see them is that those families are not wanting to be seen. It is illegal. It's considered child abuse or child neglect to be homeless with your children. And so families are afraid that if they're discovered, their children will be removed from their care. And for many years in our community, that was true. But thanks to some thoughtful community leaders, including Sue, we now have a resource for those families. And so what happens is when there's a shelter for families to come to, they are able to stay together through that crisis and take advantage of all the wonderful things that this community has to offer, all the supports that this community has to offer. So sheltering families, keeping families together is the primary mission of New Hope for Families. And we also offer early childhood care and education to young children impacted by homelessness in a mixed income cohort. Before I tell you more about that, I'd like to show a short video that shows you a little bit about who we are and what we do, so that you can get a sense of what's going on.
Hi, I'm Emily Pike, Executive Director of New Hope for Families. At New Hope, we help keep families together through the crisis of homelessness, regardless of a family's makeup. In most of the country, when a family becomes homeless, they're forced to split up, women and children in one shelter and men in another. As you can imagine, this makes the crisis even harder and tends to mean families are homeless for longer. And if a single dad becomes homeless, he could be forced to surrender his kids to foster care because it's illegal to be homeless with your children. All that separation just makes a hard situation even harder, especially for the kids. That's why at New Hope, we accept families of all shapes and sizes: single moms, single dads, married couples, unmarried couples, same-sex couples, custodial grandparents. It doesn't matter to us. If a family is responsible for a child and becomes homeless, we'd like to welcome them to our shelter program, The Roof at New Hope.
Once families are at the roof, we work with them to develop an individualized plan that not only helps them find a place to live, but works to identify the reasons they became homeless to begin with. That way, we can find solutions that last and move families into homes they'll be able to keep. And this approach works.
On average in Indiana, about 52% of people living in homeless shelters move into stable housing. But in recent years, more than 80% of families at New Hope are success stories. That's more than 100 mothers, fathers, and children each year who are able to move through homelessness into stable, long-term homes.
At New Hope, helping families move from homelessness to stability means working with each member of the family. From helping parents find jobs to showing them how to access services like food assistance and counseling. It also means working with the youngest members of those families, offering summer school break programs and after-school homework help to kids old enough to attend school. We noticed early on at New Hope that not having access to childcare for very young children was both causing families to become homeless and was keeping them from becoming stable. We decided that in order to help families in a lasting way, we needed to address that need. In October of 2015, we opened the Nest at New Hope, which offers high-quality, reliable childcare to kids impacted by homelessness. This helps families in two ways. It gives parents the childcare they need to get back to work, knowing their kids are safe. And it helps give kids the good start they deserve, getting them ready to be successful in kindergarten and beyond. The first 5 years of life are critical for young children's development, and it's also the time they are likeliest to be homeless. If there was ever a moment to be giving kids the very best care possible, the early years are it. That's why the Nest offers the highest quality care and education to children. Too often, the families at New Hope are used to making do with whatever care is available to them because it's better than nothing. We know that these are the kids who most need the very best we have to offer. When New Hope opened its doors in 2011, we were serving just 3 families at a time and running our whole operation out of one small, single-family house. But our community quickly realized we needed to do more to serve the families that need us most. You supported New Hope to expand shelter capacity and add services like early childhood programming, homelessness prevention, and ongoing case management. That's when our community began to commit to a bold vision that we would not let any family in our community sleep outside, live in a car, or stay homeless long term. In 2021 and 2022, we're working to meet that need even more fully. With the support of community partners big and small, we're moving our services to new facilities just a couple of blocks away. The conveniently located property at the corner of Patterson and Morton will be home to a family shelter that can serve up to 12 families at a time and a first-rate early learning center for 48 young children. That's a 70% increase in shelter and a 200% increase in early childhood capacity. We can't wait to get started serving even more families.
Each year, New Hope serves more than 50 families impacted by homelessness. Expanding our capacity means we get to help more and more families do the things that get them and their kids back on track.
Hey, I'm Roger. I came to New Hope with my 4-year-old son, Jaden. New Hope helped me because I was able to be with my son and connect with my son the whole time. I wake up, I be right there with my son. And then until it's time to go to work, then I get off of work, I'm right there again. What's good about New Hope, they're a family shelter and they're willing to take in your kids also. I really had nowhere else to go to, had nowhere to turn.
I've known Roger for 2 years. I seen him as a brother. I thank New Hope for bringing my brother along. A lot of things changed. His personality changed, first of all. His personality changed because a man needs his own space. He needs his own space. When I seen that he had his own opportunity to have his space, I seen his shield come down. You know, he was like, all right, everything good, bro. I got a place to stay. I got a place to lay my head. I got somewhere to put some food at. Now I got to worry about getting my son in daycare.
The daycare helped me out a lot because I'll go to work from 8 to 4 and they open at 7:30 and close at 5:30. So without the daycare, I wouldn't be able to have no one to watch my son or make funds come in so I could be able to pay my bills. So that's a blessing right there. Right now, I got a new job that's doing well for me. I'm able to get 40 hours a week and I do music. I'm a Christian rapper. I praise God, and me and my brother, we go to the studio and we record, make mixes, and we do performances, videos that we put out for people to spread a message to people and to young children too, because we feel like we gotta give them knowledge of what's really going on and what's really important. And when I got my house, I was grateful. I was thanking God and all the people that helped me, the whole New Hope family shelter helped me, and they would stand by my side and help me up because I'm a single father and I'm trying to do what I can for my son, and that's all that matters.
Here at New Hope, We're so proud to be part of a compassionate community that doesn't let any family sleep outside or fall through the cracks. We're grateful for all the ways our community here has worked to support the families who need us most. And we're so excited for your partnership to expand this vital service. You know, I often tell folks that at New Hope, we meet parents on the worst day of their lives, the day they move their kids into a homeless shelter. It's difficult to imagine how hard that is. But thanks to the generous support of our local community, those families don't have to be defined by that one terrible day. Thanks to you, it can also be the day that marks the start of a new chapter for those families, the day they got the help they needed to turn things around.
New Hope is for families. Will you help us?
That's our marketing director there at the end. Yeah. I wanted to share that with you today because New Hope is in a place of tremendous transition right now. And that's a little peek at how we operate now. For obvious reasons, we haven't welcomed a lot of visitors into our shelter or our school for the past couple of years, but things are looking up. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about where we are, where we've been, and where we're going. So as you saw, we started in 2011, and at that point we could serve 3 families at a time. Out of one little house that the hospital, at that time Bloomington Hospital, later IU Health Bloomington Hospital, agreed to lease to us for $1 a year. So we consulted some business partners and they thought that was a good deal. So we said yes to that. And we operated out of that house, not for very long, honestly, because very quickly the community realized what an important mission this was, and we realized we were going to need a lot more space. And so over the course of the next several years, we expanded to serve up to 7 families at a time. And then we opened our early learning program. And that was really because we looked around and we thought, gosh, we are seeing a lot of really little kids here. And we thought, well, maybe that's a function of this community, or we have a pretty small sample size. But we quickly learned that in this country, you are more likely to experience homelessness in the first year of your life than at any other time. And you're second likeliest before you turn 6. And that's because of the very high cost of childcare. So sometimes people think, I'm not sure how these two things go together. And I'm telling you, the reason those two things go together is that if parents can't get to work, they can't have income and they can't have housing. And so that's one of the missions of the Nest is to get parents that care that they need for their kids so that they can do the things they need to do for their families. But I often say the super secret real mission of the Nest is to get these kids ready for kindergarten, because we know that kids who start off behind are likely to stay behind. We know that being ready for kindergarten on the first day is one of the strongest things that we can do for these kids. So I like to say that we do this in a way that isn't what I call child storage, right? Where you just sort of drop off your kid in the morning and 9 hours later you pick up the same kid in roughly the same condition. So that program is nationally accredited. We're very proud of that. Fewer than 6% of family child care providers in the state of Indiana achieve that level of excellence. And that really is because of the way that this community has come around to support that. We've been at this for 10 years. And about 4 years ago, together with this community, we made a pretty big promise. We did what I like to call throwing your cap over the wall, right? So we threw our caps over the wall and we said, no more families sleeping outside, no more families living in cars, no more families forced to separate from one another in order to receive vital services. And this community said, yes, we are with you. And I'll tell you, 2 years later, there was a global pandemic. Maybe you heard about it. And that was really in question. But I have to say, it was so humbling to watch this community rise up and uphold that promise. And so I am proud to say that throughout the COVID pandemic, we have expanded our capacity when it was necessary and made sure to uphold that promise. Not only that, but last year in the state of Indiana, 39% of people staying in homeless shelters moved out into a lease that was in their name. Last year at New Hope, that number was 81%. "81% of families who come to us move out into a home in their name that they can afford." And that's what we're all about at New Hope. We're about supporting every member of a family to stay together because we know that families are stronger together. We're about supporting every member of a family to do the things that are best for them and for their family, based on their own needs and wants and values, because we think it's impossible to do care for children or for families if it's not centered around dignity. And that has been such an exciting journey for us. But it's getting even better because we have, for the past 10 years, been operating out of 5 little houses on 2nd Street that first Bloomington Hospital, then IU Health Bloomington Hospital, and now the city of Bloomington have generously leased to us for $1 each a year. And we've been so pleased with that. With the hospital's move across town came a need for us to think about a new location. And so for the past 5 years, New Hope has been working on that. So in the video you saw that empty parking lot at the corner of Morton and Patterson. I don't know if anyone's driven by there recently. It's not empty, that is so right. So we are in the process, we're very near completing a new school for 48 young children and a new shelter for 12 families. So as you saw in the video, that's a 70% increase in our family capacity and a 200% increase in our early childhood capacity. We are so excited because what this means is that we will be able to more fully and more efficiently meet this community's needs. I say to people sometimes that a shelter like New Hope couldn't exist just anywhere. There are a lot of shelters for women. There are a lot of shelters for women and children. There are a lot of shelters for men. There are very few shelters that say, whatever kind of a family you are, you're welcome here. Whether you're a single mom, a single dad, a married couple, an unmarried couple, a same-sex couple, a family with a transgender member, custodial grandparents, whatever it is, if you've got a bad credit score, if you've had a couple of evictions, if you have other mental or physical health problems, you are welcome here. And we want to support you to be stable. And we couldn't do that without this community. So this shelter reflects this community's values that says we embrace and welcome all families, and we want everyone to be welcome here. And so I'm here to say thank you for being part of this community that has done so much to make sure that this mission could live and thrive. That can't happen just anywhere. And it's because Bloomington's a special place. So thank you so much for having us here today. Very soon, these buildings will be open. And in fact, on May 14th, there will be an open house that will be open to the whole community. And we'd love for you all to come. So there'll be information about that on our website. But that'll be a chance for you to come. I hear there are going to be cookies and lemonade. So honestly, I don't know. Feels like a pretty good way to spend a Saturday afternoon to me. Thank you so much for having us here today, having me here today. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Emily. I've always thought of Bloomington as a community with a heart. And I know there are so many nonprofits here, as you mentioned. And you mentioned 89% are able to find a home they can afford. It's got to be a terribly big challenge because Bloomington is among the least affordable in the state of Indiana. So I guess my question is, to what extent do you work with other organizations? I'm thinking Habitat for Humanity for one, and there must be many others, Centerstone and others. Thank you.
Absolutely. Could you guys on Zoom hear that question?
No, you can go ahead and repeat it.
Oh, they're saying yes, they could. Okay. So the question was, to what extent does New Hope collaborate with other agencies? And the answer is tremendously. So we partner with any number of agencies in our community. Hoosier Hills Food Bank is a huge partner for us. We served about 10,000 meals and snacks last year to children in our early learning program. We did that for 50 cents a meal. And that is through partnership with Hoosier Hills Food Bank and others. We partner with Middle Way House. We partner with, I was gonna say Shalom. You guys, it's been 2 years. It's gonna take me a little while longer with Beacon. We partner with Beacon. We partner with Wheeler. We partner with Centerstone. And you know what? Now I'm regretting that I started to make a list because there are so many that I've forgotten. There are any number of nonprofits. Our United Way membership is really useful for us in that way. It's a great way to collaborate with those other agencies. The reason New Hope got started was because there wasn't a resource like this. We've never been in the business of trying to reinvent the wheel. And I think that's something this community does really well. So we collaborate tremendously. Jim, I want to say something too about your earlier point about housing affordability. Bloomington is in the 89th percentile for housing affordability. It's very costly to find housing. We know that our local leaders are working hard on some plans to see if we can't ease the pressure on families around housing costs. When we think about homelessness and the causes of homelessness, it's really easy to go straight to substance abuse or a mental health problem or a physical health problem or unemployment. And certainly those are all contributing factors. But if you looked at a map of the United States graded for housing affordability and a map of the United States graded for homelessness, you would see that those are almost exactly the same maps. It's not the same map as a place that shows where's substance use the biggest problem. It's not the same map that shows where unemployment is the biggest problem. The cause of homelessness is not having a home. And I'm really proud to see the way that our local leaders have recognized this and begun some very serious plans to think through what we can do to make it more affordable to live here.
Thank you for that amazing presentation. I once worked at Centerstone as the research and evaluation division, and I remember a client that really struck my heart because she told me that the reason why she became homeless was because of certain chronic medical conditions that she had that were the reason why she couldn't keep a job, and therefore because she couldn't keep a job, she was always like consistently addicted. And that's pretty much how her her journey into homelessness began. I'm curious about what are the top 3 reasons why the people you serve become homeless, and what is the strategy that you use to help them make sure that that's not going to happen again once they are free to start and move on with their lives?
That was a great question. So the question was, what are the top 3 reasons that families become homeless? And what are our strategies for helping families overcome those obstacles to stay stable long-term? Was that about right? So families become homeless for a lot of reasons. As I said, the number 1 reason is that housing is not affordable enough. But we also see, really tragically, very often the birth of a child is the catalyst for a family's homelessness. Childcare is very expensive, and it should be very expensive. Okay, this is a really important job, but it's not accessible for many families, quality childcare. So that's a primary reason. We do see families suffering from a substance use disorder. We do see families, very often, we see a high proportion of families who suffer from some kind of a physical disability as well. So I would say those, and I will be really clear, that's not based on data, that's based on my anecdotal experience. Those are some of the reasons that we see families becoming homeless. One of the things that helps us achieve that 81% success rate is that we use what's called a housing first model that's based on voluntary services. So that means that when each family comes to us, we learn about exactly what's going on for them and exactly what their goals are for themselves. And so what that means is if Jeff and his family come to me, we say, hey, Jeff, we're so sorry. Tell us what's going on. And then let's make a plan that's about you and your family. And it's Jeff's job to drive that plan. Because we understand that too often these families do not have the opportunity to have agency in a way that's meaningful and that protects their dignity. And so having those individualized success plans is the way that we do that. So when it comes to mental health concerns or substance use concerns, Centerstone is a primary partner for us, also IU Health. When it comes to physical health concerns, again, IU Health, also HealthNet is a tremendous help. When it comes to other sorts of things, there are any number of partners that can help. But basically, that was a long answer to a short question that says it's different for every family. We're really fortunate in this community to have so many partners who are dedicated to this and so many partners who do it well based on what we understand to be evolving best practice.
Please address the difference between this and Habitat.
Absolutely. The question was, please address the difference between this and Habitat for Humanity. So New Hope is an emergency shelter. It is only for people who do not have anywhere else to sleep tonight. So that even means if you're staying with your mother-in-law, with your kids, even if you don't like your mother-in-law, you're not homeless, right? So we need only families who would sleep outside or in a car or in a place not intended for human habitation. And the goal is for them to reach stability. Habitat for Humanity has another really important mission, but it's for folks who are about 2 ticks more stable. So that's for people who are stably housed, but not in adequate housing. So those families need to be stably housed. They need to have some credit history. And the goal of that organization is to help get families into home ownership. And it has a broader, if anyone knows more about this than I do, please feel free to correct me. But part of the mission there is broader in terms of helping families establish some long-term net worth, build credit scores, and be able to think about the next thing. So Habitat is something that our families might take advantage of a year or two after they leave our program.
Okay, I think you can hear me without a mic. First of all, Jeff was right. You are inspiration. Thank you so much. Second, is there a time limit on how long a family can stay? And can you give us generally the parameters?
Absolutely. The question was, is there a time limit on how long families can stay? The answer is yes and no. So there is a legal limit on what emergency shelter is. I will say at New Hope, we continue to serve families for as long as they're making progress and as long as they're dedicated to this. That's part of how we get to that 81%. Pre-COVID, our average stay was about 83 days. Post-COVID, it's a little higher. It's a little over 90 days. We are continuing to see that go back down. So we do think it'll probably even out again somewhere just under 90 days. So a median stay is somewhere around 70 and an average stay is somewhere around 90. So most of our families get out in less than 3 months. Families who take longer, almost always, either have had a major physical problem, so they needed to have a major surgery while they were staying in shelter, or they gave birth to a child, either while they were in shelter or immediately before. And those are 2 things that often keep families in shelter for longer. Because of our housing first model, it is important to us that we get families into housing as quickly as possible. And the reason for that is it's easy to think about, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name, but based on our Fulbright Scholars question, it's easy to think about all the things that caused a person to become homeless and think we need to get those fixed before we move you into a home. The problem with that thinking is there is nothing that leads to homelessness that is easily fixed while you're homeless, right? If you have a mental health problem, that is not getting better while you're in shelter, right? If you have a physical health problem, that is not getting better while you're in shelter. If you are unemployed, it is very difficult to get a job while you're living in a homeless shelter. And so the goal always is to get people into housing as quickly as possible that they can afford, that is reasonable, and then continue to offer those supportive services over time. Because we know that things like physical health problems, mental health problems, job training, these are things that take years for all of us, right? Nobody just one day decides they're going to be a surgeon. All of us have to train for whatever it is that we've decided to do. Did that answer your question in many more words than you wanted?
Thank you, Emily, for this wonderful presentation. Can you describe the childcare opportunities that exist? There was an adjective used that made me think that maybe families who have moved on can still have their children there, and possibly there are open spaces for the community. So I'm just curious to hear a little bit more about that.
That is exactly right. You nailed it. So the question was, tell us a little bit about the childcare and the enrollment there. So families who are experiencing homelessness or are impacted by homelessness get top priority on our wait list. Half of our seats are reserved for children impacted by homelessness. And that means they were impacted by homelessness at the time of their enrollment. When I say impacted, it could mean that they were homeless at that time, they were at imminent risk of homelessness at that time, or they had recently transitioned from homelessness at that time. Those kids can stay enrolled for as long as those families want and need that care. Oftentimes when a family moves out of homelessness, they'll end up somewhere that's just not logistically reasonable. But many families stay, we've had several families stay until their kids went to kindergarten. Half of those seats are for kids impacted by homelessness. The other half are for anybody in the community, regardless of income level, on a first come, first served basis. Right now, we have something like 29 children on a wait list. We have welcomed 2 new children from the community this year, because that is just how high, in what high demand those seats are. So families who come to us tend to stay with us, which we know is the best thing for kids, that stability. Michael, can we check for Zoom questions? Is that okay? Oh, you did? Okay, sorry.
I think that's it.
Oh, we're done. Okay, thank you guys.
Emily, thank you so much for being here today. We're grateful for the work that you're doing, for sure. In honor of your presentation today, we will be giving a donation to Cardinal Stage. Next week, our speaker will be our own Ben Pearson. He's going to be talking trash, recycling, and sustainability. We will be meeting in the Georgian Room and on Zoom. And don't forget, the Rotary Book Club is reading in honor of Kurt Vonnegut's 100th birthday. We are reading Player Piano, and we've got 4 weeks to read it. We're going to be meeting on April the 13th. With that, let's do the 4-way test, +1. Of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth?
Truth.
Second, is it fair
to all concerned.
Third, will it build goodwill and
better friendship.
Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And number 5, is it fun?
It's fun.